because we've got 13 and 2, 4, 6 in person, so it's 19. So we got about 3 or 4 more. We'll give those 18 people at home a chance to complete the poll. And if you don't know how to do a poll in Google Meet, you're going to go to the upper right-hand corner of the Google Meet. You're going to click on the little icon with the 4 different geometric shapes called activities. You're going to go down to poll, and then you're going to click on one of those choices. And now we're starting to get some votes in there. So, well, with 2. Now we're starting to get 2 votes in there. Right. So if you guys that are remote can go in and fill out that poll for us real quickly, that'd be awesome. Plus, it shows us how the poll feature works. Okay. Not that it's necessarily that useful to you, but Google added those 3 things since the last time we met to a Google Meet, the ability to do a poll or multiple polls, which is what that question is. I asked a question, gave them multiple choice answers, and then they can select one of those multiple choice answers. And we can all watch the results of that poll come in as they fill it out. Okay, again, we only have 3 people filling out the poll, 4 people filling out the poll, and we got 19 of you or so online. So 15 of you need to go in and fill out the poll. Pick one, even if you're undecided. Q&A is another feature. So we can turn on the Q&A feature for them remotely. The Q&A feature is right here. As a teacher, I have to enable it before they'll be able to ask questions. And then if they have a question, they can go to that same activity spot where polls are, pick the Q&A feature instead. They can type their question, and other students that are in the Google Meet can upvote the questions. In other words, if they all have the same question, they'll pick the thumbs up on it. And I'll see 10 students have this question and only 2 have this question. So it's a way for me to get feedback on what's most important to them. And then the third feature is breakout rooms, which we're not going to use at all today. Breakout rooms is where I can take these 18 people that are at home, split them into 4 different rooms so that they can have a conversation with just the 4 people that they're sharing the room with. And then when they're done having their little side conversations on the topic that I give them, I can bring them all back to the main room for us to have a class discussion. So it's like being able to put the kids into small groups. That's called breakout rooms. That was the class I was going to do at 8 o'clock this morning with Vanessa. That got canceled by the internet outage. So we were doing that class again at 1 o'clock today. So maybe again at 2:15. We haven't decided whether we're going to shuffle and reschedule the morning class later this afternoon. So if you're interested in finding out about breakout rooms, you can send an email and we'll add you to the calendar appointment for one of those afternoon sessions. Okay? So I have to keep, as a teacher, going back and forth between these Q&A and poll features to see what's going on. So we got a lot of people saying Google Drive basics. 7, 2 saying Google Slides basics. 2 saying more on Google Meet and Classroom, which is kind of what we just did. And then 1 on Gmail. Okay, so it sounds like you guys are mostly comfortable with Gmail. We don't see what he's presenting. I'm not presenting anything right now. I'm just talking to you. So you see me.
The poll, they wanted to know about the poll.
The poll, they go the same place I go to get to the poll. So you guys need to go up to that activity panel, which is right next to the chat button you just clicked on. Click on the activities panel, and then click on polls. You're not in Google Meet, so you guys aren't going to see it. Okay? So I'm not presenting anything, but if you want to see the poll, you can go back to where you just filled it out, and you'll see how the results are coming in for that. That means I got 12 votes so far. We have 19 of you, so we're going to call that a success, that we got enough opinions from you. Okay? If you haven't, and I didn't tell you last time, when you come to the sill, you always dress in layers. Because we go from freezer light to furnace light at different points during the day, depending on whether the sun's out. So it's supposed to be 70, but like this. So, and if you didn't think I was Superman, I'm also totally, completely awesome. So,
We need a poll on that.
And modest, and shy, and retiring. Humble. I actually took some masks that I bought at Target and used a fabric pen on them to put awesome sayings on them too. So, my significant other, she does not like the I come with a side of awesome sauce mask. I thought it was funny, but not everybody has my sense of humor apparently. All right, so I'm going to go into present mode now. We're going to start with Google Drive Basics. So I'm presenting my entire screen. There's three options there. I don't know if we talked about them. Did we talk about those last time for presenting your screen in Google Meet?
Yes.
So there's three options: entire screen, just one Chrome tab, or a whole window. I almost always use entire screen. The only time entire screen doesn't work real well is if you're trying to play sound to the people that are remotely other than you talking. Like you're trying to play a video and have them hear the video. Then you need to use that Chrome tab one. The nice thing about entire screen is if I decide to do something different than what I was intending, I can switch without having to stop presenting and start presenting again to pick that new tab. Because when I pick entire screen, it lets me take everything that's up on my screen and send it out to the people remotely.
Now where's the key for that? How would you change it?
So down here is present now. So I'm presenting my entire screen.
Yeah.
If I wanted to change it, I would have to stop and come back down here again and choose one of those three choices. Yep, one tab, one window, or the whole screen. So one window could be everything that I'm presenting in Chrome. However, the people at home, if I was doing the one window, would only see what happens within this window. They wouldn't see anything out here on the desktop that I might click on. So if I wanted to show them something else, like open an app or something, they wouldn't be able to see it. So that's why I use entire desktop. It gives me the most options for the least amount of effort. There are times you want to use the other ones, but most of the time, entire desktop gets the job done. Okay, so we'll make this full screen. Hey, you people at home, by the way, don't be shy. Unmute your mics and yell at me if you have a question, if you have a thought, if you have a concern. Don't let the 6 people that are in person carry the load. Okay, I like to interact with people and have people pick on me and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, I'm a Dolphins fan too, so feel free to talk about Tua at the end when we have more time. All right, so 2 things that you guys seem to want to learn about today is Google Drive and Google Slides. I heard a lot of you last time say, students need to make slide presentations, we don't know how to help them. So that's something we're going to cover in this hour. The other is Google Drive, which is the basis for everything we do at Shen. It underlies everything. You may hear that the name of Google is changing, right? So you might have already noticed. The icons now have a flashy multicolored view to it with all 5 Google colors rather than just the yellow, blue, green that it was before. Same with Gmail. That's because Google has now changed the name from Google Suites to Google Workplace. So it's now Google Workplace for education and not Google Suites for education. The only reason I'm telling you that is so if you hear new terminology, you don't panic and think you have to learn something new. They really haven't changed the tools too much. Google's really good at every 3 years changing the name, though, to make you think you missed out on something. Okay? So Google Drive is the basis for all that. How do you get to your Google Drive? Really quite simple. You can click on a new tab and come up here. And last time I told you how to type addresses for Google, right? Does anybody remember that? Anybody at home? Anybody here? I shouldn't say at home. Anybody remotely and anybody here remember how to type an address in to get to where you want to go in Google? Yes. So what are we trying to get to?
Google Drive. Are we trying to get to our Drive?
We're trying to get our Drive. So if we wanted to type the address rather than using a shortcut we already have, what address would we type in to get to our Google Drive? Drive.google.com. Because the way Google does their addresses is all you do is you put the name of the tool in front of .google.com. So drive.google.com or mail.google.com or news.google.com takes you to that appropriate Google tool. So for whatever reason you get confused at some point and you can't find the shortcut and you can't figure out how to get there, you all know how to type an internet address in. Because we all type www.amazon.com every day. Right? Or at least that's what the guy that delivers the packages on the porches do. Has anybody, by the way, cool. Has anybody got the new Amazon van delivering their packages yet?
Nobody's seen it.
The electric vans are now delivering over in Glenville and Schenectady. And when they drop off my package, they take a picture and they email it to me every day with the package on my porch. Yeah. So the Amazon vans do that. I mean, I live right off of Sunnyside, and the van's been there 2 days in a row delivering packages.
I'm gonna go on Amazon.
Just so you can watch the van pull up. So it's not everything. Anything that they still mail through the post office still comes the other way, but anything that comes as a package through UPS has been coming on the Amazon van now. So just completely useless aside for you. All right, so you can type up here, drive.google.com, and it'll take you to your Google Drive. You'll notice as you start to type it, it even puts the old icon up here to show you that's where you're going to go. Okay? If you don't want to do that, you can come over here and click on the Rubik's Cube. Now, I know last time I covered with you that you can reorder that Rubik's Cube. And you can drag things around in it and change the order in them so that this order works for you. Notice, by the way, we now have all the rebranded Google icons in there with the 5-color scheme. Okay. Notice also that in my menu, you do not see slides, docs, or sheets. You notice that? It's not up here in my top menu. Any of those applications. They are here. They're all the way down at the bottom. I put them all the way at the end of my menu. Because I strongly feel that none of you should be using those doc sheets or slide apps. Good question. So her question for you at home was why? You got to speak up really loud, like use your outside voice inside, which is like the weirdest thing for us to say as teachers. We have to tell our students that all the time now too. So why shouldn't we use the doc sheets or slides apps? Anybody know the answer? Or anybody want to guess at it? Because the worst you could be is wrong, and I don't beat people for that anymore. They told me I had to stop and do more research.
What's the question?
Why should you not use the docs, sheets, and slides icons in this pull-down menu that's up at the top? Not use them. I want to break through that habit.
Are they shared by any chance?
Nope.
No.
It does go into your drive. Where? That's why you shouldn't use them.
You don't know where.
Okay, so when people use those icons, the doc sheets and slides icon, it puts them right into your main drive folder, and they just start to accumulate and pile up and pile up. They're never filed away. Okay, and it leads you guys to become disorganized. I've seen it tons and tons of times. And if I'm anything, I'm OCD and anal retentive to the extreme when it comes to that. Okay. In fact, yesterday I had a few minutes, so I went through and cleaned my drive folders out and reorganized them and colored them up a little bit differently. And you can, sure, we're going to do that right now. But the reason why I'm telling you not to use these icons here is because you have very little control over where things go when you use them.
Right.
Google, you don't save as things when you're done, right? In Microsoft Word, you would create a great document, and the last thing you would do, file, save as, and you would put it in the folder you wanted it to be in. You were organized. In Google, you never do save as because it doesn't exist. So you have to decide where you want to put it to start with, because then whenever you're working on it, it's going to keep saving it into that same location. So it's much more important to get your starting spot fixed with Google than it was with Microsoft. And that's why I want you to use the Google Drive icon for everything and not use these icons down here. And I want you to use this one right here. Google Drive. That's my Google Drive.
All right. So if you're in Google Drive, you're all set then.
So we're going to talk about, once you're in Google Drive, how you create one of those doc sheets or slides things. So a document, a spreadsheet, or a presentation. And we're going to talk about how you do that. And look, coincidentally, I have a presentation and I have a document. And I say I have a presentation, but I am lying to you. Everybody I know at Shen, except for a few people that I could probably count on my hands, and definitely on my hands and toes, fingers and toes. That's the way that tongue goes, fingers and toes mean. Yeah, that one. Yeah, I've forgotten all those. It tells you where I am in my life stage at this point. All those nursery rhymes. So, sure, I want you in the same screen that I'm in right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in your drive. Yeah, because that's my drive. Okay, my drive's a little more organized than most people. Yeah, well, just wait. Okay, we're going to run through all that, but we're going to try to do it in my logical order, which may not be yours, unfortunately. Right? So we're in our drive. We see all of our files. You can see that I have a document. You can see I have a video. You can see I have a presentation. I tell people, don't get stuck on that presentation idea for Google Slides. Because Google Slides is not just a presentation tool, but it's also a desktop publishing tool. You want to make a poster, Google Slides. you want to make a pamphlet or a brochure, Google Slides. If you want to make a birthday card for your sister whose birthday is on Sunday, it's Google Slides. Okay, I have 2 slides. I resized the paper in here. Oops. I hate when they jump like that because I'm impatient. I made the paper 11 by 8.5 because that's what?
Normal size.
The name size paper. You don't start out automatically on a paper size sheet in Google Slides. You start out in that widescreen presentation view because most people use it as a presentation tool. So I simply changed it to a paper size by clicking here, and instead of choosing one of the presentation screens, I went to custom and I made it 11 by 8.5. I could have made it 11 by 17 and used the big paper that's in the Xerox machine. Okay. And then I simply laid my card out on 2 pages back to back. And when I print it, I say print this back to back, and I get a birthday card. So happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, and then in our COVID world, it's either your birthday or you need to wash your hands. Right? Yeah. I never get serious birthday cards. And I don't know why, but there's not yet a market for COVID birthday cards.
Oh, sure did. You can make your money.
So, right? I think it's funny at this point. It's too soon? No. It's funny. All right. So how do we create documents and where do we put them? So that's the really key thing, is that you can create folders, you can color those folders, and then you can create documents. When you want to create something, you really want to navigate into the folder where that thing is going to reside before you create it. So I'm in my session materials, Bulljohn session materials, and I have all of these different folders. If I wanted to put this in a class for desktop publishing with Google Slides, I would come into that folder. I would come up here to new, and then I could create my document or my spreadsheet or my slideshow. That means I've now filed that into the place I want it to reside, so that whenever I make changes to it, they're always going to be in that folder. So that's why we do it this way, instead of using those dot sheets and slide shortcuts from the Rubik's Cube. Because this way, I can decide where I want to put it before I make it. Does that make sense?
So choose the folder you want it to go in first.
Correct.
So we'll start with how do we create that folder? And you know the whole thing is you learn this and then use it in our position, and then maybe 8 months down the road, oh, gotta remember, what the heck is anything for 8 months?
How do you create a folder?
What?
How do you create
Create a folder.
A new folder.
Say that again. Click new.
Yep.
Yeah.
New. And there it is. Got it.
Google's trying. I wasn't trying to be. I guess I was trying to be snarky and stuff, but so. All right. Well, I haven't worked with you long enough to know that you're snarky. Yeah. But I am definitely a lover of sarcasm and many other things like that. But yeah. So Google puts almost everything you want to start from scratch into this little pull-down menu underneath that new. So it's the same whether you want to create a file or a folder. You navigate to where you want it, and then you create it. So if you want to put a folder inside of a folder, you need to open that folder first and then go new folder. Right? Okay. The other trick you need to know, and if you learn these 2 simple things, that everything's under the new menu, and if you right-click on something, it'll give you the options of what you can do to it. Those 2 things will get you through almost everything you need to know in Google Drive. Right? I click on a folder, and I want to change the name of it. It's in that right-click menu. How do you right-click on a Chromebook? I saw the looks. I saw you going. 2 fingers together.
2-finger tap.
Right click. 1 finger and click is left click. 2 fingers and touch on a touchpad is right click. And on a Chromebook. So if you move your mouse up to one of the things in your Google Drive, you take 2 fingers and tap, you'll get that right click menu.
Well, why would you do that? I mean, I just.
Well, that's why you're here.
I click new, I click folder, and it says I got my new folder.
Yep. So you get a title.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of the rules I tell people too. I work with secretaries a lot in organization. Never create a folder unless you have what? No. More specific. She said, never, I said, never create a folder. And she said, unless you have something to put in it. And she's off by one letter with her answer. Never create a folder unless you have some things to put in it. Okay? Because you don't need a folder to organize things if it's only one thing. Right? There's no reason to create a folder and only move one file into it. Because then you're making your organization system more complicated than it needs to be. That's why you can always see in my folders, I have loose files that I can't quantify sitting out here, and then I have folders where I can organize things above them. Okay? You're always going to have a few files sitting in every folder because you're not going to be able to file everything away into a group of folders and items. You should never create a folder unless you have at least two, probably more like 3 or 4 things to put in it. This is going to make you more disorganized instead of less, or to make you less organized instead of more organized.
John?
Yeah, it's just like a filing cabinet. You wouldn't put a manila folder in with one piece of paper.
John? John?
I taught here 30 years ago, 31 years ago. I've been teaching here 30 years now. I taught with Mark Copper right through that door across the hall directly. Literally, my student classroom, teaching classroom was one door down from my office. And then I student taught with Gary DeLuca up in high school. The reason why I'm telling you this story is one of my jobs with Gary DeLuca when I was student teaching was to stop the piles from collapsing into the center of his desk. Okay?
John?
Mark, get home, we can call in for a sub and say, go into my 3rd cabinet down, go into the 2nd drawer, pull out the box labeled this, and all the materials for the lesson are there. Okay? So I had night and day. I think I fall somewhere in between the two, but probably closer to Mark than I did to Gary. But so everybody has different ways of organizing things is my point. But you got to try. It's something you have to put effort into. Right? I told somebody I get freaked out every day if I don't clear my mailbox out before I leave for work from work. So I
John?
my mailbox right now because it might get things thrown at me. Okay? Considering I get hundreds of emails in a day.
John?
So creating a file or folder, once you create it, you right click on it, you get a list of options of what you can do. So rename, change the name of the file or folder. Change color. Touch board's not working today. You get a list of 24 different colors that Google thinks you might want to use.
Trying to get a lot. It's okay because I can't.
The what in there?
You have the double one.
Two fingers together.
On you.
So no. On one of the files that are 2 fingers. Tap. And bring the right click thing. Okay.
Oh, those are on the existing one.
Yep. Once you've created something, you can right click on it and see what you can do. You can change it. You can rename it. You can delete it. Okay. You can make a copy of it sometimes. You can share it with other people. Okay. Those are all from that right click menu. So if you're having a hard time figuring out where to go to do something, try right clicking on it is my point. Okay. Right clicking will almost always get you the list of choices you want. You don't like it in this folder and you want to move it into another folder, move is in there. Okay. You want to put it in a handy spot so you can find it again quickly because you're not worried you put too many folders down. You can use this add to start. And then everything you star shows up over here. It's still going to be filed away where you filed it. But it's going to put a shortcut over here in your starred folder so that you can get to it quickly. So my starred folder is all the things I'm currently working on or all the things that I work on regularly. So if I go into a spreadsheet every week and make changes to something, I put that in my starred folder also. It's still filed in my district office, curriculum instruction and assessment, Elizabeth Wood folder. But I keep it in my starred also so I can get to it quickly. So any question about these options that are in this right click menu?
John, can you hear us?
One of your virtual students says that they can't hear you.
No, we can hear him. He can't
Thumbs
hear us.
up if you can hear me, the 5 of you that have cameras on.
We hear him. He can't hear us.
Sarah Boyan, you can hear me, thumbs up. No, he's going thumbs up. Oh, there she goes. All right.
We can hear you.
He can't hear us.
They're chopping. We hear him, he can't hear us.
Oh,
There
well,
we go. We might not. We might
all
get
right,
him.
here at High School West since the last time this room was used. And
We don't see anything. We don't hear anything. Are we here? Wait, let me.
we didn't hear me, he didn't hear you.
We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you now too.
We have questions.
Great.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. The power went out here and the speaker amplifier went on.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
All right, Deborah, go ahead and ask your question.
All right, John. I didn't know that I shouldn't create the folders in Drive. I've been using the Docs pull down. How do I move those files into a folder?
Awesome question. And I'm so glad I can hear you now. I thought they were awfully quiet. Talk too much, but
We've been yelling your name.
Okay. Thank you for having us.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right. So the question is, once I've created a folder, how do I move something into it? So this works just like Windows. I can't say it works like a Mac because I get highs when I touch Apple products. So I don't know how it works with them. But if I click and hold my mouse, I can draw a box and select more than one file or just one or two. Okay. I can also click on one file and it makes it blue and hold down my control key and click on another file to also select it. Same as in Windows. So depending on how many things you want to move, you can select more than one at once. Then, if you click and hold down the mouse on those things you've highlighted, you can drag them up and a box appears around the folder you want to put them in and it will move them into that location.
John, excuse me.
Hang on one second.
Will do.
If you don't want to move it over here into one of the folders that's in the same folder you're in, you can show your entire drive over here on the side. You can
Okay.
path to the folder that you want. You drag things from here over into any of these folders that are on the side. So you don't have to move it from up one folder and then up another folder and then up another folder. You can just drag it from here, drop it in whatever subfolder you have open, and it will go in there. Or you can right-click, say Move To, and it'll pull up a little box where you can navigate through your different folders and move it into the folder that you want it to go in.
Now, if you create it in sheets and you've got it on the side there,
If you create it in Sheets, it's sitting in your Google Drive.
okay,
It is out here
yeah, it's,
in this main folder. So here's what you guys are saying. If I come down here and I accidentally created a Google slideshow here. So I'm going to create a blank one. Call it blank. Okay, and I save it. It just got saved. Where did it get saved? That's why I tell you not to use those things, right? But if I close this and I come back over here to my Google Drive, you can see that blank thing appears there. Now, the problem for most people is they don't only have just 4 files here, they have hundreds of files.
Yeah.
So it's going to appear alphabetically in that list by default. However, here's your quick trick. If you come up here and click on Name, and you put Last Modified by Me, it will then organize them in the order of when they were last created. You have the newest to oldest or oldest to newest arrow next to it. So those 2 boxes there allow you to control how your drive is organized. One thing you can't control, folders are always going to appear first, files are always going to appear underneath them. It will organize your folders alphabetically or by recent date, just like it does your files below it. So question at home first, or question remote first, and then we'll come back to the question in here.
John, your presentation would be awesome if we could see what you're doing. We just see the classroom. We don't see you clicking anything on the screen. We just see the people.
So I'm a straightforward person if you haven't figured it out. That's your fault. So what you need to do is this. You need to know that
Are you presenting in a different spot?
you need to be clicked in a different spot.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. I got you.
You got it? So you got to go to the people pane,
Yeah,
and
got
then
it.
you're going to click on the John Bullington presenting,
All right.
and then you should be able to see my screen presented. I'm really not blaming you about this, but I'm trying to illustrate the point is that people at home, all of your students, control what they see. Remember last time I told you, you think they're listening to your lesson, but they're looking at Susie because they got a crush on her? Okay, that was an example of it. Okay, at some point she accidentally clicked on a different person in the pane and it locked in that pane and it didn't show her the presentation. Okay, so, and you can do that by simply clicking the little pin next to somebody to pin their face up there and ignore whatever else goes on in the Google Meet. Yeah, it's, remember, we're an afterthought. We're becoming a much more important afterthought to Google, but Google designed this for who? For what group of students? Well, you're closer with themselves. They didn't design it for students. They designed it for business first. And then they said, hey, we're missing a big market here. They designed it for schools. And you're going, well, that's great. They give it to schools for free. How's that a market for them? Two ways. One, when a kid leaves here and they go into the business world, what are they going to ask for? The Google tools they've used our entire time in high school. So that's one way Google creates a market. Now, they also charge us money for the Google sites because we have a whole bunch of extra features that we wanted that weren't in the basic thing. So now Shen pays for those features. So now they're getting a check from us so that we can record the Google meeting, so that we can get attendance, so that we can test the students' works that they submit for plagiarism. All those are extra paid features that they're charging that we're not paying for because we're in this world where we have to deal with students learning remotely, and we need those extra things. Don't ask what the bill is. I don't know. So, but it's a super powerful tool. I mean, going back to when I was teaching the classroom 20 years ago, if I had these things, so many ideas that pop into my head every day of what I could have done that I couldn't do then, could do now, kind of thing. All right. So in your Google Drive, you create the items where you want to put them, or you click and hold down on them and drag and drop them to move them to where you want them to go. And when the internet's not latent like it was this morning, they move them that. Okay, you do have a trash bin over here. Okay, that trash bin, things will stay in it for 30 days. Okay, it doesn't mean every 30 days, April 1st, May 1st, that they empty your garbage. They have a custodian standing by 24 hours a day at your garbage. When anything's been in there for more than 30 days, gone. Okay, so it's like a constantly revolving garbage can that only throws out the really old smelly stuff. Okay, so if you're that person that used to store things in their garbage can, stop. Because in Gmail and in Google, they just announced they're going to start enforcing that 30-day discard policy. Okay, so if you put something in there, it will disappear after 30 days. All right.
John, if something should happen and we all are forced to come from home, will all of us be then?
That's not my decision. Okay. I can't answer that question for you. Okay, that's something I have to take up with the district administration and stuff like that. I can tell you we only have so much money budgeted last February, March for this school year. So they bought what they could with that. And now they've had to give more Chromebooks to students who are CDL that aren't coming in. That may not necessarily happen home. So I would assume that next year's budget would include more money for Chromebooks because now there's a bigger need, but I don't know what they have on hand. Okay? This is the short answer. And my job description, IMS's job description. IMS fixes machines. I fix people. Not in the veterinary way. Okay? But if you have questions and you don't understand something, I help you get to that point where you can. So I don't get to make those decisions. Although I've told the superintendent on more than one occasion, if he let me make all the decisions here at Shed, everything would be perfect here for me. He rolls his eyes. I don't understand, but okay. All right. So we have to look at the meet and see whose microphone is moved. Doesn't really matter. Okay, she got the point. Is apparently what I was going for. So there are a few more things over here in your Google Drive that I want to talk to you and show you real quick before we move on to Google Slides. I'm trying to be cognizant of time. We're about halfway through our time, so I wanted to split it between Google Drive and Slides. But you guys can always change that because I'll do what you want because that's what we're here for, right? So up here in the right-hand corner of your Google Drive, there's a little eye. Not an eyeball, but an eye in a circle. That eye opens up a pane on the side for details. When I'm working on a PC, I usually leave this open. When I'm working on a Chromebook, I usually close it. The reason being is on a Chromebook, the screen is so small, taking up a third of the screen with that detail pane, I don't find the value in it. but I do when I'm working on a desktop, because what this details pane does for me is when I click on a file, it shows me, is this file shared with anybody else? It'll put the names there. So this is owned by me and not shared by anyone. It tells me when I last opened it, when I last modified it. It shows me a thumbnail of it. I can click on the activity pane, and I can see all the changes of when I made them to it or when anybody else made changes to it if it's a shared file. Okay, so let me show you a shared one real quick. All right, so this one is Inside Shen. I can see that on January 17th, it was edited by the Inside Shen account. Sutoko looked at, was given view rights to it. Not a great one because it doesn't have a whole lot of. All right, so this one has more. I gave it list Shen access. And I gave these individual people or took these access away from these people. So you can see who's given rights to it. You can see who makes changes to it. You can see when they make changes to it. So this details pane gives you everything you need to know about any file or any folder in your Google Drive. Okay? And if it's a shared folder and somebody deletes something out of it, a details pane will even tell you Bob deleted this file out of the shared drive. Okay? So everything is accounted for there. So know that what you do, people are able to monitor. They're not actively doing that because nobody has that kind of time. Okay, but if you delete something from a shared resource, they'll know who deleted it. Okay? All right, so just be cognizant. Now, this is my main drive. I have 5 folders. What's different about my 5 folders? You can talk out loud at home too if one of you knows the answer.
Colors.
Sure, but that's kind of like just stylistic and organizational for me.
They work on different things.
Nope. One of those is Waldo. Where's Waldo? And I don't like you guys aren't all enough to know who Waldo is because he's 30 years old. I found out the other day. Inside Shed. What's different about it?
A person.
Okay, it's got a person icon on it. You guys see that little icon on there? Okay, but that tells me just by looking at that folder, if that folder is shared with other people. Either someone else is the owner of it and they shared it with me, or I'm the owner of it and I shared it with other people. Okay, when I click on that folder, over here, I can go to details and I can see that that folder is owned by Inside Shen and that all of these people have access to it. Okay, so any folder that has that shared icon, you need to be a little extra cognizant and careful about, because if you're deleting things out of shared folders, you're deleting them from whom? Everyone that shares that folder. Okay? Whereas if the folder is just plain, that's your folder. If you delete stuff from that, you're just deleting it for yourself. And so that's one visual indicator to give you a little bit of pause and put a little thought into it. Okay. If you're on a file itself, know that if I delete this file, all those people have access to it. Okay? This is not a file I'm going to delete. This is a major file for 612 standards for teachers and how to use online classrooms. I shared with them during several different PED sessions. All right. So we're good there? Mm-hmm. All right. I'm not going to get into more detail with Google Drive, but I can in the future. I do have videos on my YouTube channel to show you how you can move things from your F drive or your local computer into your Google Drive and how Google will automatically convert them from a Microsoft format into a Google format for you. So if you move a PowerPoint presentation into your Google Drive, Google will upload that and turn it into a Google slideshow automatically. Okay? Works pretty good, 90–95% conversion rate. With things being successful. However, converting Google Docs or Microsoft Word documents to Google Docs isn't as smooth. More like 90% of the time it works out pretty good. Okay. All right. Over here on the left, shared with me. What is shared with me?
Your documents that shared with other people to you. That's important. Somebody has shared their documents with you. It's a shared drive for everybody.
So someone else has shared a document with you. It's not necessarily in a shared drive. It could be in their main drive folder. Something is shared, somebody has shared something with you. So this view that you guys are looking at right now, shared with me. My view is going to be different than yours. Why? Different people shared different things with me than they shared with you. Great. So we're all clear there. So we're all understanding, right? That the stuff we see and shared with me is not what? No, it's not what? What you're looking at up here for me, the stuff in the shared with me is not what?
Not owned by you.
It's not mine. Okay? So what can I do with this stuff?
And not delete it.
You can delete it, because if you delete it, you're only deleting your access. But what you can't do is you can't organize this. And if you're deleting it, you're fighting a losing battle. Because people are sharing stuff all day long with you as a group.
Yeah,
Good.
stop that. That's what I want.
You don't. You can't. You know what you do with share with me? You know what you do with share with me?
What do you do?
Nothing.
Leave it.
Leave it.
Ignore it.
Not ignore it, but leave it. Here's the analogy we give to people with shared with me. Like a river. Right? If you're looking at a river and you see something that's in the river that you want, what should you do? What? Go get it. Capture it. Fish it out of the river to save it. Because if you don't, what's going to happen to that thing that's in the river? It's going to float away and go downstream. That's exactly how shared with me works. Okay? My shared with me goes back to the beginning of Shen using Google Slides here. There are 5 years of stuff that's been shared with me. Do I care about the stuff 3 or 4 years down the line? No, because you know what I didn't do? I didn't fish it out. I didn't care about it. Because some stuff I care about and some stuff I don't. So what you need to know, the only thing you need to know about shared with me is how do I capture something that's in there and put it someplace else so that I can reference it later on if I know I'm going to be using it again and again and again. Right?
Well, that's like most students. It's the students, that they share every.
It can be the student stuff,
in thing with you.
but mine is not the students. Because you know what? Mine is all the other people at Shen. And it will just keep going and going and going, right? So when I know that somebody has shared something with me that I'm going to need to refer to again, maybe it's this here, right? And notice, by the way, stuff shared with you doesn't even have to be from Shen, right? So this is just another Google user out there, James McGeechan, who shared something with me in a group I'm in, a folder I'm in, from out, like I'm on the Bosie's Model Schools, I'm on some of the Google knowledge board. Any of those people, if they share something with me, it's going to show up in my shared with me. It's not just young people, it's not just young students. Okay, so if this is something that I think is important enough that I want to keep it, what I do is what? I already told you the answer to this in a tricky way. How are we going to do that? When you don't know how to do something, I told you the one thing you need to remember, right-click it. So when we right-click this, one of the options is to add a shortcut to our drive. Once that shortcut is in our drive, I can move it and organize it into any folder I want to keep it forever. Until James removes my access to it. Because even though I've added a shortcut to my drive, it's still not what? Still not mine. It's still that other person's file that they shared with you. Okay? So when something's shared with you, there is really no way to keep it forever. Unless you decide to make a copy of it. Make a copy. But what's the problem with making a copy of something somebody shared with you? I'm going to give you the bill schedule right now. Go make a copy of it. You're going to take it up to Xerox and put it on there, and your copy is going to be locked in at that point in time when you made the copy. Any changes they make to that bill schedule later on, you're not going to have because you made a copy of it 3 days ago. Okay? Same thing in Google. Okay? So almost always better to use this add a shortcut than it is to do make a copy. The only time you would make a copy is if it's something you want to archive and have forever that you know isn't going to be changing at all, for the most part. So that's the thing most people don't get, is that your access to things in Google can be quite temporary. And in fact, one of my favorite features is this one. I'm going to share this file. All right. And so I shared, you can see I shared it with Chris Hatter, something I was trying to show him that was happening. Okay. One of the things I can do is, ooh, maybe I can't do it anymore. Let's see. They take it away. I'm going to be disappointed. It looks like they took it away. You used to be able to say, I only want to give access to this file for 30 days, 10 days. And then as soon as that expired, it would disappear from there. So I'm going to have to look and see. It used to be literally right here when you were in the sharing screen and you moused over the person, there was a little stopwatch that you can click on and say, I don't want to give this person access for the next 10 hours. So I could share something with you and say, I want your feedback by Monday. And then I'm moving on. And on Monday, disappears from you because you know what I don't want? You guys to give me feedback you think I'm listening to after I've already turned in that project and I can't make any more changes. Okay? I'll look and see if we can still do that because it used to be a feature in the sharing screen here. Interesting that it's gone. Okay? But how did I get there? I right click. Okay? You feel more comfortable with Google Drive? Mm-hmm. Any questions remote or in person about Google Drive before we go on to Google Slides? Go once, twice, sold, Google Slide. I already have a blank slideshow because I opened it up over here. It's right there. You can see I use slides up for a lot of things, and I use it for publishing. All of my help cards, my top tips cards that you may have seen printed out, those are all done in Google Slides because I can lay things out on the page wherever I want. Whereas in a Google document, I'm really restricted to doing things much more linearly. I can't put things over each other. I can't order which layer they're in on a page. It's really, there's only one layer in a Google document. You can't put stuff underneath stuff. You can't partially cover stuff. And you can't really use graphics in a Google document. So I use Google Slides to accomplish all those purposes, not just to do presentations. Okay? I was going to go back in here into my desktop publishing and show you that one of the things I obviously use Google Slides for all the time is to create greeting cards. So this is my Mother's Day card from last year. Mother's Day isn't always about the bouquet of flowers. So I don't know if you're wondering what I'm doing after I retire from teaching. It's not going to be making greeting cards. I know you're thinking that because I showed you two for two. But when something strikes me as funny, I just have to share it if you haven't figured that out already. No matter what we're supposed to be doing. All right. So Google Slides is a great tool for laying out a presentation, but it's also a great tool for publishing. So keep that in mind when you're working with kids. You're going to have to choose what the best tool is for the job that they need to do. All right? So sometimes it isn't going to be Google Docs. And we'll show you why by using a blank slideshow. All right. So by default, when you start up a Google Slideshow, the slide format is in what they call widescreen. Well, why do they do that? Well, because you know what we don't have anymore? That all of us had as kids? Okay. Why is it always in a widescreen view now? Instead of, for instance, the default PowerPoint view like that. Does anybody know what all this revolves around? You should, because we spend most of our life sitting in front of one. Yeah. Remember the old picture tubes? Mm-hmm. You know, where you had to get up and turn the knob? Because there was no clicker. Although, you know how they call it a clicker? Does anybody remember those old Sylvania TVs where there were literally 3 buttons on it? And you'd have to press the button and it would go click, and that would move the channel up one or down one?
Okay, I'm old.
Those were the first. We had one of those TVs in our living room that had the doors on it, the wooden doors. You could shut the screen and pull it open, and it had a plastic clicker that was like this big, and it had 3 buttons on it: channel up, channel down, and off. With a 3, you couldn't even change the volume. And when you press the button, and it literally went click, click, click. But anyway, PowerPoint, Google Slides, all are based around presenting something on a screen. When PowerPoint first started with Microsoft, the only kind of computer monitors we had were those big monitors that were CRTs, that were like a TV or a tube. Now everybody has these TVs that are widescreen or ultra widescreen. They even have what they call ultra widescreen now, that are even wider. Okay, so the first thing we need to do when we come into Google Slides is decide one of 3 things. Well, one of 2 things, I guess. We have multiple choices for one. Is it going to be a presentation? If it's going to be a presentation, we're choosing one of these top 3. Standard widescreen or widescreen 16:9. And to be honest with you, no difference between 16:9 and 16:10. They're just a slightly different ratio, and they both fit equally well on a TV. Okay. The 4th choice is the one where we then get into having to decide, is this going to be a print material that we're going to want people to be able to print out or keep? Is it going to be a document? If it's going to be a document, what we're putting in here is the size of the piece of paper that we're going to be working with. 11 by 8.5, 8.5 by 11. Okay, so you always think that when you're designing a presentation in Google Slides or in PowerPoint that it has to be wider than it is taller, but that's not the case. Okay, it is the case if you're doing a presentation. You do not want to use this format because you're going to have 2 big black bars on your TV screen when you present it. But if you are making a print material, you're going to change that page setting to a custom setting. So at this point, most of what your students are doing are probably going to be presentations for a class. So we're going to work off of this 16:9 widescreen. Okay? Google tries to make things easy for you, just like Microsoft does. And it tries to say, I'm going to put content on this slideshow. So this is the first slide, so it's going to be a title and a subtitle. That's the layout that we're going to use on our first slide, right? And I'm like, no, I'm going to use the format I want to use. I don't want to use any of these pre-laid out things where I'm going to have 2 columns or, oops, sorry, wrong button. Or I'm going to put in a title, subtitle, and a picture. Okay? You can use these. They're there for you. Google predetermines these with each type of theme you're using for your presentation. However, I find it just as easy to use the blank and draw things onto here where I want to put them. Okay? So that's going to be up to you whether you want to use one of those canned ones or whether you want to put your own elements onto the slide. It is not hard to just go with cats. Who doesn't like cats? And don't tell me everybody, because there's lots of people who I know. All right. So it's not hard. The nice thing about Google Slides is you can just easily move things around and rearrange them on that piece of paper wherever you want. You can't really easily do that in Google Docs or in Microsoft Word for that matter. Okay. So I tend to use the blank layout and make things look the way I want them to look. But if you want to work very quickly, you can use any of these other ones. Now, which choices you get up here depends on which theme you choose from over here. Okay, by default, you get the blank white, simple light theme. It chooses your font, it makes all the slides blank. However, Google does have a whole bunch of pre-made ones here. Go ahead. Does anybody have any thoughts that pop into their heads when you're looking at the pre-made themes over here on the right? I do. Maybe I'm very strongly opinionated on everything, but
Do the kids know that there's pre-made ones on the side?
I don't know.
Like we work with?
How would they know?
pull a slide? How do I do this? How do I do that? I'm like, oh.
Well, how would they know?
I don't teach them.
Well, either the teacher has to teach them or you have to teach them how to do it. And so that's, I think, why you decided you wanted to be here today, right?
Yeah.
So the answer is no. There is no curriculum at Shenandoah to teach computer skills other than 6th grade technology over in the middle school. And they do a whole bunch of things with kids, but when you do something once with kids, it doesn't necessarily stick, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the answer is you're going to probably have to show them. All right? But my thought when I see these is, God, Google pays millions of dollars for graphic artists, and this is what they came up with because they're ugly as sin. Okay? But they are what they are, right? I can click on one, and then when I come up here to my layout, you can see that the different layouts change based on the theme I picked over here. Okay? Okay? So you can experiment with that. I'm not going to get overly complicated with you guys today, but you can see down here there is an import theme. So if you downloaded somebody else's Google presentation off of the internet and they created a different theme than those, you can bring that one into your presentation. And my favorite is puck. Yes, I said with a P, puck. Okay? And if I search my Google Drive, puck, and click on that presentation, which is sitting in my Google Drive in a templates folder, and then say, I want to bring in this theme. And now I have my theme. Okay? So I'm not going to show you where to go out and get themes off the internet and do all that. Your students probably are going to choose one of those default 16, 20, therefore that are there. There are all kinds of websites that if you Google, you can find places where you can download new themes. Slide Carnival is the one I use most of the time. But not something that I would mess with the kids.
Yeah, no.
It's probably too much. But if you're making a presentation for yourself or something, and you want a different theme, okay. You can also, I'll go back and choose that blank theme for now. You can also right-click and choose a solid background color for your slides. So if you don't want white and you want it to be Shen green, you can say, I want it to be Shen green. I want to add that to all of my future slides. And then instead of white, it's green. So let's just right-click on the slide. Remember, right-click is the most powerful thing you'll ever learn. Right-click is options, options, options. So if you right-click on something, it's going to show you what you can do to that something. Whether it's in Google Drive, Google Slides, Google Docs, doesn't matter. Right-click, it'll tell you what you can do. All right?
Oh, yeah.
So change background. And you can also put an image as the background. So when you put an image in, so what's the problem with this image compared to the slide that I'm putting it on? We already talked about this when we talked about my Sylvania as a kid. Not the right proportion yet. It's not the right shape. So when I insert it, what's it going to do to it? It's going to distort it. Yeah, it's going to do and some of us like this, but it's going to do the funhouse mirror effect, you know, where it makes you skinnier or taller or uglier, depending on the mirror, right? So that's what it does. However, what's the problem with putting a graphic as your background on the slide? Yeah, you have to worry about putting your text on top of it to make it clear. There are ways around it. Now, before I show you the way around it, if I add another slide, I'm going to do it by holding on my control key and hitting M for more. Okay? But you can also come up here to insert and then say new slide. That's how you can add more slides to your presentation. The reason why I like Control M is because I can just do this. Okay? You can also rearrange the order of slides simply by clicking in the slide pane on the side, holding down, and moving your mouse to rearrange them. Okay? You want the line to appear between two slides to show you where that slide is going to go when you let go. Okay? So again, if I wanted to add that background, I would right-click on the slide, choose Change Background, go over here to my image. I would pick that image, insert it, and then before I leave, I would click Add to Theme, and then it will put it on every slide that I add to that presentation. Okay, by doing that. Okay.
Can I have a question?
Sure. Home people too, remote people, don't forget, when you have questions, don't let these people in the room dominate. You guys shout them out. We'll get one in the room first.
John, I have a question.
One sec, she's asking her question, then we'll go to yours.
So to change the background, what was it that we would go?
You're gonna right click, 2-finger tap, and then choose change background.
We don't have that. Choose it.
You gotta be on the fly. And change background. But it's probably because you're on a slide that has formatting on it already. So if we come back over here to our theme. Choose that home white one.
I'm sorry.
And then. Yeah. You gotta be so on the background.
It's fine.
Change back. All right, remote question. Go ahead. Say your
Okay,
name.
so-
Everybody knows who you are because we're not looking at the meet. We're looking at the slides.
Okay, it's Paula Glogowski.
Okay.
My question is, okay, so you keep talking about right clicking, and that works great when you have a mouse. But when you're using the Chromebook, are we using Control C and then Control V to drop things?
So that's copy and paste. To right click on a Chromebook, you use 2 fingers together, like you're doing the Scout or the Richard Nixon. Right? The Scout, 2 fingers together, and then you're gonna tap the touchpad. That's a right click.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I know that sounds silly, but I didn't know that.
Somebody actually asked here, but I think you guys were on silent at that point in time, so we didn't hear you react or say anything to it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I wouldn't suggest using an image, but if you do, then we have this problem. If I type text in here, Bob is the builder. Right? When it's on the sky blue, it shows up pretty good. But when I move it over here, it doesn't show up hardly at all. So you can learn some basic tools in slides. I'm just moving it so we can see it. When you click on something, a toolbar will appear here with all of the options that you can do for this toolbar. Right, so I clicked on this Bob the Builder box. See how it's got the blue boxes? If I click off of it, they disappear, and my bar up here changes. Okay, so I click on this box, and I click on this box, and I want to make a change to it. I want to come up here to this paint can, and I say I want to fill that box with white. All right, so now when I move this text down here, it would still stand out. So if you're using an image, you're going to want to do that. And that works with any tool up here. So for instance, if I want to create a shape, we'll do a triangle just so it doesn't look like the same rectangle. I can then click on that paint can, and I can fill that shape with a color. Now notice it's filled with green, but it's outlined with gray. That's because right next to the shape tool is the border color. I can click on that, and I can make the border any color I want. And then right next to the border color is the border thickness. Okay, so these tools just work across. The border is solid blue right now. I want it to be a dotted blue line. Okay, so you can just work across. It works on whatever you currently have selected, the different choices you make up here. As soon as I click back to this Bob the Builder box, notice that it no longer has green, blue, and dotted up here. Okay.
We had to go to a plain background that was white for Bob to go in there, right? But it came out.
That was this tool here. This is the text box tool. When I click on that and I draw a box, it's going to be transparent to begin with. And then Sally is a seashell seller. I can't see it. So I have this box selected. I come up here to my paint can. I fill that box with white. All right. Now, just a trick for you too. We'll give you all the extras today. So I don't have just solid colors up here. I also can do gradients where it goes from white to yellow if I want to make it look fancier. I tend to think the more you do stuff like that, the more distracting it can be sometimes. All right. And then you also can come over here to the custom button. and then you pick your color, white, and you can slide this transparency lever to the left. And so it's still going to be filled with white, but it's going to be partially transparent. So you can still let the picture show through and make your text stand out. And if we don't like that black text, we can highlight that with our mouse and come up here because we're now on the text toolbar, change the font, change the size. We'll make it bigger, or we can click in here and pick a bigger size instantly. Okay, or we can click in here and type a custom size. Okay, all these tricks work in docs, they work in slides whenever you have these toolbars, right? So I want to make this red. I come over here to the A with the line underneath it, and that's changed the color of the text. And I can change the color of the text. So it's a combination of using that shading in the box and the color of the font to make it stand out on the slide the way you want it to, right? Now, I'm trying to show you something else here. And that is when you're building your slide, what you need to think of it as, and you guys, I hate to sound insulting, but I'm just the way I am. We're all old enough in here. I don't know about the remote people because we can only see a couple of them. We're all old enough in here to have used overhead sheets in high school, right? You know what an overhead is with the light bulb, and you put the plastic on it. And when you put more than one sheet of plastic on an overhead, what you get is a composite image, right? That's what this is. Each one of these things we put on a slide is on a separate sheet of plastic. So this one was the most recent one we put on the overhead. The Sally is the seashell. Yeah, I knew I was going to do that to myself. I did it intentionally. I thought I could handle it. All right, Sally is a seashell seller. Was the last thing we put, so it's in the top layer. If we don't like it there, we can reorder those sheets of plastic on our overhead. The way we do it is by doing what with Sally is a seashell seller. What do I need to do to change the order of this? Nope.
No.
Oh, change the order?
Yep, to change where that piece of plastic is on top of the slide.
You have to move it.
What? I can move.
Down.
What?
Right click.
Remember I told you one thing today.
It's right.
Right click. So when I right click on this box, one of the choices is order, where I can send it back, which means send it back one sheet, or I can send it to the back, which means send it behind all of the other sheets. So I'm going to send this back to all the way to the back. So it's going to be the bottommost thing. So now you can see it worked. Because now my shape is over the top of it. If I bring Bob the Builder down here, he's in that middle layer, right? So triangle's top layer, Bob the Builder is middle layer, Sally the seashell seller is in the bottom layer. Okay? So using this layer tool, using the text box tool, and using the shape tool, you can pretty much lay out everything you want the way you want it on the slide. And I think that's going to be 80% of what your students need to do, right? We're not going to talk about fancy animations and how you move things around on the slide. You don't need to do that for the most part. You might want to add an image on top of your background. And that's up here under the insert image. Notice insert text box is there. Insert video from YouTube is there. Okay. Insert diagrams, word art, lines. Those are all in there. A lot of those are also here. Okay. One last thing I wanted to show you. Bob is our builder, right? God, I don't know what I'm going to get when I search this on the internet because you never know.
I have a quick question.
Bob the Builder cartoon on YouTube. I'm going to copy the address. I'm going to come back over here to my presentation. If I highlight text or a shape, anything on a slide, any object you put on a slide, if I highlight it and I come up here to this link tool, I can then paste in that website I just found. And that piece of text now becomes a hyperlink out to that other resource on the internet. Okay? Any resource. Doesn't have to be a YouTube video. It could be a web page you found. It can be any type. It could be a PDF that when you click on it on the website, it loads up the PDF on your screen. Anything you find on the internet can be linked in your presentation simply by selecting the object, clicking on the link tool. Yeah, the top of my board's touchier than the bottom of my board, but I'll click on it this way. And then inserting the link you want. Now, a link can be to anything outside the presentation on the internet, or it can be to any one of the slides you have in your presentation. So if you wanted to make a button on your second slide to jump down to slide 13, and another button to jump down to slide 16, and another button to jump to slide 3, and let people choose on that second slide which button to click, you can do that. Okay, so if I make this a button that takes me down to the last slide, okay, that triangle is now a button that takes me to the last slide. I come into my presentation, I click on this button, it jumps me to my last slide. Okay, when I'm in presentation mode. Or I click on my slide here, I go to present again, I click on Bob the Builder, takes me out to that YouTube video. Okay, so that's I'm trying to think of the skills your students will need when using PowerPoint. Basically, or using slides. Basically, you're going to be putting content on the slide and linking it to other resources out there on the internet. Okay, so we are over time, right? A little bit. Apologies. I didn't know what time. What did we actually schedule for? 10:30? Okay, so we actually have another 15 minutes. Good. So questions I want to go through. Yep.
Because I just wanted to know again how you, if you want to write something, how do you get to write it? Yes.
It's the text box tool. So on your toolbar up at the top, if you want to write something on a slide, you're going to go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th tool over, the text box tool. It's a T in a box. And that's the same symbol they use in all the different Google products for text box. Okay? You just want to be on the slide that you want to add that to. Okay? Remote people, what do you guys got for me? Nothing. I can't tell whether my speakers are working. It's hard. I mean, now you're getting from this class a very good perspective of what our teachers are going through right now. No matter how much you try to talk to or engage the people at home, they feel like they're not part of it. And so that's something we have to work on more with everybody, is figuring that out. Now, if I was doing this as a longer class or a class with student children, younger children in it, I would have activities for them to do at home, and I would have activities for you guys to do. I would design PowerPoints where you had to accomplish something. I would assign it to you in classroom and assign it to them in classroom. And then we'd have Karen present because I know her name. Okay. Or we'd have Mary Beth present because I know her name. She and I go back to Gowanna. Were you in Gowanna Junior High too, Mary Beth?
Yeah, I was there when you.
It was junior.
You were just a young lad.
Gowanna Junior High at that point. I was a young lad. I taught 11th grade, non-regent, 9th period in the trailer outside the high school my first year here. So I would walk in the building from the trailer and they'd ask me for my pass. And then I'd start wearing ties. And at the time they were the skinny ties. You guys remember the skinny ties? And so I'd get asked where my wrestling tournament was when I came to the building. So I don't know if they kept doing it because they thought it was funny or they just kept thinking I was still a student. Even we didn't have IDs and lanyards yet because we didn't have to worry about things back then. So I'm not going to do them all with you guys, but I have so many stories of the kids in that 9th period, non-regent, 11th grade class outside in the trailer. And, you know, surviving your first year of teaching makes you a stronger person because it can't get much worse than that. Because I was teaching 3 different preps, 2 different buildings. I started on the middle school schedule at 8 o'clock, like 45. And I ended on a high school schedule at 2:40. So I was on a compressed schedule. So I was teaching all of my classes in a shorter amount of time. Because I had to get from here over to there for 9th period. So my prep time also got shrunk in that day. Now, in theory, I was supposed to stay after 2:40 at the end of my 9th grade class and prep. but that was my drinking period because I had just taught 11th grade non-regents, 9th period outside of the trailer. And needed some kind of stress relief. I'm not a drinker, I'm really not, but I'm more of a thrower than a drinker. So, all right. So I hope this was valuable for you. As you guys identify other things that you need, I'm more than glad to put something together for you. If you can tell, this is kind of impromptu right now because you guys aren't able to tell me exactly what you want. But if you come up with exactly what you think you need, we can be a little bit more concrete. I'm pretty fluent in Googleese, so I can pretty much answer questions off the top of my head. For the most part, I don't get stuck usually saying I have to look that answer up for you. Although I did get some today because they removed that little stopwatch that lets you do the expired sharing. And that's something that happens in Google because they're constantly changing. That's the great thing is we're getting new toys and new tools. Like Vanessa and I thought it was Christmas the other day because we were doing our video on how to do a poll, how to do question and answer, how to do breakout rooms, with all these new things to play with. And we were all excited about it. All right. I am all set. And we're early by 14 minutes. That doesn't happen often.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to stop my recording so it doesn't go on forever. That's one of the things you need to remember in Google Meet. If you don't stop it, you get a really long recording that you have to cut apart. Okay?